He thinks you haven't noticed. The delay in his replies, the way his words used to pull you in like silk and now scrape against your skin like sandpaper. He's still charming, but it's mechanical now, empty, predictable, routine. The game began the moment your heart leaned forward and his spirit leaned back. But what he doesn't know is that you are not the same woman who once begged for breadcrumbs and mistook silence for mystery. You have started to see clearly, and once a woman sees clearly, the game is over. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that's exactly what these men count on. Your unconscious hunger to be chosen, your inherited story of not being enough, your hope that love can fix what self-awareness must confront. You don't outsmart a man by playing harder. You outsmart him by rising above the board completely. No more strategy from the wounded self, only movement from the healed self. This is not about revenge. This is about reclamation, because he doesn't deserve your reaction. He deserves your absence. He doesn't deserve your explanation. He deserves your evolution. The first shift is the hardest. You want answers. You want validation. You want the version of him that showed up in the beginning. But the beginning was never real. It was bait. His highlight reel, your fantasy, the temporary illusion of compatibility. What you saw was potential. What he gave you was performance. And now the curtain has dropped. This is where most women spiral. They think, if I just did more, stayed cooler, loved better, looked sexier, he wouldn't have changed. But listen closely, he didn't change, he revealed. What you're experiencing now is not rejection, it's revelation. This pain is not punishment, it's initiation. You see, when a woman connects with her feminine essence, she stops chasing the inconsistent. She stops trying to decode coldness as mystery. She stops trying to win love where love was never being offered. There is nothing more dangerous to a manipulative man than a woman who no longer needs to be liked. Because the moment you stop fearing his loss, he loses his leverage. And the only way to do that is to stop looking outward. Start looking inward. You don't ask, why did he pull away? You ask, why did I abandon myself trying to hold him closer? You don't ask, why did he lose interest? You ask, what part of me is still trying to earn attention that should be freely given? Carl Jung taught that inside each of us is a shadow, a hidden realm of shame, suppressed needs, unconscious patterns. And when a man plays with your heart, it's the shadow he activates. Not because he's powerful, but because you've never made peace with the parts of you that feel unworthy of full devotion. But now you are waking up. You are seeing how every anxious text, every overanalyzed message, every attempt to act unbothered was not about him. It was about the girl in you who still feared being forgotten. And now, she no longer runs the show, because you're not the wounded girl anymore. You are becoming the woman who remembers, the woman who doesn't need to be everything for a man to be something, the woman who doesn't try to earn love through emotional labor, the woman who lets go, not to win, but to reclaim. The game is only fun when you play it back, and now you are stepping off the board. There is a moment in every woman's life where she must choose between the illusion of connection and the reality of her own power. Most won't. They'll stay, they'll wait. They'll romanticize the chaos, call it chemistry, and keep lowering the bar until they forget there was ever a standard. But you are not most women. You feel it in your bones. The pull to rise, to detach, to stop feeding energy into the black hole of his ambiguity. He pulls away to see if you'll chase. He withholds to see if you'll bend. He creates doubt to watch you crumble. And for a while, maybe you did, but not anymore, because you've learned. Your self-worth is not defined by his return. It's measured by your ability to walk away. He is not your mirror. He is your trigger. And in that trigger is the invitation to heal. You will not beg for someone to see you. You will see yourself. You will not ask someone to choose you. You will choose you. You will not wait to feel loved. You will become love first to yourself. This is emotional sovereignty. This is inner magnetism. This is how you outsmart the game. You stop playing in hopes of winning him and start living in devotion to your own wholeness. The feminine doesn't beg. She doesn't compete. She doesn't chase clarity from men who can't even face themselves. She attracts from her presence, not her performance. And presence can only bloom in the absence of fear. So what if he thinks you're cold now? So what if he says you've changed? So what if your silence makes him uncomfortable? That discomfort is his medicine. Let him sit with it. Let him taste the void he once filled with his control. And in that silence you return to yourself. Not in fragments, but in full force. Because this isn't just about him. This is about every moment you've handed over your power, hoping someone would treat it better than you treated yourself. It's about all the little betrayals of your gut, your values, your standards, for the sake of connection. It's about all the times you feared losing him more than you feared losing you. But not anymore. You don't need closure from someone who never gave you clarity. You don't need apologies from a man who never knew how to hold your truth. You don't even need to prove you've moved on. You only need to move inward, deeper into your intuition, deeper into your feminine wisdom, deeper into your emotional intelligence. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." And that's where you are now, awakening, not to who you once were, but to who you must become to never fall for that game again. You're no longer attracted to inconsistency. You're drawn to devotion. You're no longer flattered by crumbs. You are fed by presence. You're no longer seduced by performance. You crave integrity, and from this place, this rebirthed self, you will never again fear his loss, because now you know the truth. If a man can't meet you in your wholeness, he doesn't get access to your softness. If a man plays games, he disqualifies himself from the kingdom. And if a man doesn't see your value, it's because his vision has never met a real queen. But yours has. You have returned to your throne. And this time, you're not stepping down for anyone. You don't fight the darkness by arguing with it. You dissolve it by turning on the light. And right now, that light is your awareness. Not the kind that comes from reading quotes or hearing advice, but the kind that scorches illusions and leaves you raw, awakened, and dangerous in your clarity. You have seen the game for what it is, a pattern, not a passion. A tactic, not a love story. He was never in love with you. He was in love with the version of himself he could control around you. And the moment your radiance outgrew his grip, he started to pull away. Not because you were too much, but because you were becoming too aware. Most men playing games don't want a real woman. They want a mirror. They want reflection, validation, worship. But when you start reflecting back their own inadequacy, they flinch. Carl Jung called it the Nema projection, the tendency of men to project their ideal inner feminine onto women, confusing fantasy for reality. And when you don't behave like their fantasy, when you become real, human, sovereign, they recoil. They accuse you of changing. But you didn't change, you evolved. This is where most women retreat, back into the box, back into performance, back into silence and sweetness. Because they fear abandonment more than they fear self-betrayal. But you're done betraying yourself. You no longer see love as something to be earned. You see it as something to be recognized. And if he cannot recognize you, you disappear from his field entirely. The truth is, most women don't get ghosted. They get graduated. They rise so high in their awareness that men rooted in games can no longer reach them. That's not rejection. That's evolution. So don't chase. Ascend. Because the more you try to win the attention of a man who is misaligned with your self-worth, the more you delay your own destiny. And no man, no chemistry, no history, no fantasy, is worth slowing down your becoming. He breadcrumbed you because full meals require full presence. He disappeared because devotion terrifies the emotionally bankrupt. He kept you confused because clarity ends the game. But your confusion is clearing now. Now you see how the mind clings to pain, not because it enjoys suffering, but because it fears the unknown more than the familiar. But healing begins the moment you stop asking, "Why would he do this?" and start asking, "Why did I tolerate this?" You tolerated it because of your inner child, the one who believed that love was inconsistent, that attention had to be earned, that silence meant you did something wrong. But now, you are becoming the mother to that inner girl. You are telling her, you don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to perform for love. You don't have to beg to be seen. The feminine is not designed to chase. She is designed to be, to sit in her center, to radiate from her stillness, to attract, not through force, but through presence. The more you return to yourself, the more he will feel the absence of his control. And he will come back, not because he loves you, but because he misses the version of himself that existed when he had access to your light. But you will not answer the door, because the woman who waited for him is gone. You've stepped into the era of discernment. Not all attention is admiration. Not all attraction is alignment. Not all chemistry is compatibility. And not all men deserve proximity to your softness. Emotional intelligence means knowing the difference. It means observing, not absorbing. It means responding, not reacting. It means watching the red flags rise and walking away before your heart writes them into poetry. Jung taught that the process of individuation, becoming whole, requires facing the shadow. And sometimes, the man who triggers your deepest longing is the one who awakens your deepest healing. Not because he is your soulmate, but because his games force you to reclaim your soul. And so you stop giving energy to confusion. You stop decoding coldness. You stop trying to impress a man who doesn't even impress himself. You become mystery again, not by being hard to read, but by being so full of self, knowing that no one can reduce you to a chase. You know your rhythm now. You know your frequency. You know how it feels when a man is present versus when he is performing. And you are no longer available for performance. You've cleaned your mirror. The fog is gone. You don't see potential anymore. You see patterns. You don't fall for vibes. You observe behaviors. You don't get seduced by charm. You are moved only by consistency, because you've tasted the difference between being desired and being chosen. And now, desire doesn't move you, devotion does. This is the quiet power of the magnetic woman. She doesn't prove. She doesn't explain. She doesn't need closure. She simply rises. And when she rises, she does not look back. Let him wonder. Let him regret. Let him replay every message, every moment, every memory of the woman he couldn't keep because he chose to play when she was ready to build. You are not a temporary thrill. You are a permanent standard. And when a man games with your heart, he is telling you he is not ready to meet himself. So how could he ever meet you? You are not a reward for potential. You are a mirror of truth. And his discomfort in your light is not your responsibility to soothe. You've done enough. Now, you return to your center, to your ritual, to your sacred pace, to your knowing. And from this knowing, a new you begins to emerge. She doesn't just outsmart the game, she transcends it. She moves through the world like a storm in stillness, soft but unshakable, silent but commanding, open but discerning. She walks into every room knowing, if a man cannot hold your depth, he has no business tasting your fire. Because the feminine doesn't want control. She wants safety. She wants truth. She wants the strength of presence that holds, not the strength of performance that manipulates. And now you give that presence to yourself. First, fully, unapologetically. This is how you stop attracting players. You stop playing. This is how you outsmart the game. You become too self-aware to be played, too emotionally intelligent to be manipulated, too sovereign to be seduced by chaos. The feminine doesn't just attract love, she alchemizes it. She turns attention into reverence, desire into devotion, connection into sacred union. But only when the masculine is ready to meet her there. Until then, she waits for no one. She creates, she heals, she becomes. And in that becoming, she forgets all the men who fumbled her before she remembered who she was. He might reach out again, with charm, with regret, with the illusion of clarity wrapped in delayed sincerity. Not because he's changed, but because he feels the absence of your need. You see, when a woman stops waiting, chasing, or hoping, her absence becomes louder than her presence ever was. And when you pulled your energy back from his game, you shattered his illusion of control. But don't confuse his return with redemption. The game doesn't end when he comes back. The game ends when you no longer care. This is the highest level of emotional mastery, neutrality. Not detachment born of numbness, but detachment born of deep clarity, where the heart is open, but the standards are sharper than ever, where love flows, but access is earned, where you are soft and still immovable. This isn't revenge, it's rebirth. Carl Jung taught that to individuate, to become whole, is to integrate all parts of yourself, even the ones you've buried to be loved. And for many women, the biggest burial was their own power, buried beneath smiles, buried beneath texts never sent, buried beneath every moment they shrunk themselves to remain desirable. But now, you are unearthing her, the woman who doesn't just know her worth, but embodies it, wordlessly, elegantly, undeniably. You don't need to prove anything to him. You don't need to win. You don't need to convince, to compete, or to decode. Because now, you realize, his mixed signals were never a riddle to solve. They were a test of your self-trust, of your emotional maturity, of your willingness to walk away from the temporary in service of the timeless. And you passed. You outsmarted the game not by playing harder, but by outgrowing the very need to play. You have become so grounded in your presence, so rich in your emotional self-awareness, that no amount of charm can intoxicate you again. Because now, your worth isn't up for negotiation. Your intuition isn't silenced by attraction. And your soul is no longer for rent to unavailable men. You are magnetic now. Not because you try, but because you don't. You radiate an energy that says, I know who I am. I know what I bring. And if you're not ready to meet me there, keep walking. That energy is unteachable. But it's unforgettable. Men may not always understand it, but they feel it. They feel the difference between the woman who needs to be chosen and the woman who chooses herself so completely that she becomes the prize, not the pawn. And that's who you are now, not just a lover, not just a muse, but a woman of standard, of vision, of depth. And from this place, you no longer collapse for someone's attention. You expand from your own source,